and welcome back to Anxiety Chats. Today's video I'm going to be talking about 8 different things that have actually helped my anxiety. I'm somebody that suffers with lots of different anxiety disorders, and whenever I looked on YouTube about hacks that can help actual anxious people and not just generally stressed or overworked or overwhelmed people, I couldn't really find anything. Like, a lot of the tips were go running or like just things, take a holiday. I can't do either of those things because my anxiety is so bad, and it was really frustrating, and I kind of felt like there was nobody talking about the things that I go through. And so I wanted to make more of these videos talking about anxiety hacks and things that help me, an actual anxious human being who has been suffering with panic attacks and anxiety for about 16 years, a very long time. So I wanted to make a video on here talking about 8 different things that have really genuinely helped my anxiety. The first one might sound kind of weird, I don't know, is self-soothing. I don't know if you notice other people or yourself doing this a lot, but like putting your hand on your chest or putting a hand on your tummy, or another one I like doing is rubbing my thighs. These are all things that people do to help soothe themselves. It's like what I imagine a mum with a little baby doing this or doing this, or when you're looking after a child or you have a child in your company, you're just more likely to kind of stroke them or do things that are comforting. And I have found doing those things for myself so lovely and so helpful. Often if I have a lot of physical anxiety symptoms, as I'm sure a lot of you do too. So I've noticed just putting a hand on my tummy, maybe massaging it a little bit, or doing this to my legs. Another one that I do more recently is like touch my face really lightly, and it feels really, really nice. All these things are things that we can control, that feel really nice, and that can be comforting. I think the role of somebody with anxiety, one of the things that really is helpful is kind of like being a mum to yourself. That might sound strange or uncomfortable to you, and doing these things might be totally alien to you. Doing nice things for your body and for yourself might be quite alien to you, and so it might feel quite strange at first, but that is something that's really helped me. Also getting some nice smelling moisturizer and giving myself little massages when I'm moisturizing, especially around my tummy area, because that's where I get a lot of my anxiety, is in my tummy. That is my first tip, and I find it really helpful. And don't knock it just yet. If you're thinking that sounds a bit weird, I don't feel comfortable with myself like that, maybe just start slowly by going like this a couple of times a day, whatever it is to kind of soothe yourself like a mum might do to a child. My next one, very different, is social media. And this, I know a lot of people have a very love-hate relationship with social media, and it's definitely not some people's go-to for feeling good, because there's a lot of comparison, there's a lot of perfectionism, there's a lot of really difficult stuff tied in with social media. For me, I've pretty much always loved it. I think it's because I follow people that I genuinely like and admire and want advice from, and I didn't actually know that other people suffered with anxiety at all until I started my own YouTube channel years and years ago. I didn't know panic attacks where other people had them. Like, I had no idea. And so it's always been somewhere for me to kind of heal a little bit and to learn. Of course, I also take a lot of things with a pinch of salt, and I also unfollow people that I don't feel comfortable with. But social media for me has always been something that I have looked to get advice and to get help from. Maybe if you are feeling like, what the hell is she talking about? Maybe you're not following the right people. Maybe social media is not for you, that's also okay. But maybe whatever it is that you're going through, whether it's emetophobia, agoraphobia, OCD, anxiety in general, try and find people that are talking about it and that aren't just showing the highlights of their life, because there's loads and loads of people nowadays on Instagram and stuff that are sharing their genuine real life stuff. And I have always found that super helpful and relatable. My next one is to do something calming for all of your senses. For me, this is always having a bath. Feels really nice on my body. Usually putting a bath bomb in there, it smells really nice and relaxing. and reading a book. So it's keeping my mind occupied. Doing things that encompass everything. Things like reading is really great for me because I know when I studied counselling, your mind can't focus on two things at once. Your mind can't simultaneously be reading a book and think, oh, it's really cold in here. Your mind can only have one thought at a time. Even though it doesn't always feel like that, it feels like we're having 70 million thoughts at once. Your mind can actually only focus on one thing. Reading might not be your thing. It could be playing music, it could be watching TV, it could be anything, but something that really is all encompassing. And the reason I like reading in the bath is because I can't really look at my phone, I can't really do anything else other than lie in that bath, take in the lovely aroma and read a book. That is my perfect way for if I'm ever feeling like anxiety is really creeping up and it's like getting to that point of peaking, a nice warm bath and a book and a bath bomb really is the perfect recipe. Especially if you're throwing a Diet Coke, then that's me. I am happy. I do feel like sometimes it is a bit of a magical cure for me. Again, it might not be for everybody, but for me, that is the perfect recipe. My next one is one that is super helpful for me. Before, whenever I would have like a day off and I'd be really exhausted, I would lie on the sofa all day and feel awful because I thought that that's what resting was, and we're always told to rest more and that kind of stuff, and so that's just what I've always considered as being restful, is lying down and watching TV all day. But actually I don't think that's as restful as we think it is, because while we're resting our bodies, our minds are then given a lot of room to make up scenarios like it likes to do, or put yourself into a bit of a hole. If that's something that sounds relaxing and nice for you, then please keep doing it. But for me, I found it wasn't working anymore. So something I've started doing and that feels really helpful is to break my day into 3. So I break it into morning, afternoon and evening, and that's been amazing and helpful. If I'm having a really tough day, then I'll leave 2 of those segments free to do whatever I want. Maybe it is lying down and watching TV or whatever it might be. But always having one segment where I'm doing something, even if it's not leaving the house and you know, having meetings or whatever it might be. It might just be cleaning a couple of dishes, or I don't know, even doing some light gardening or making some pom-poms. These are all things I like to do. I find that so much more helpful than lying down all day, because I don't think it is that helpful for any of us. I think we maybe think when we think of rest, that's what we think of. But I think rest is so much more than that. I think it's about, like I was saying, encompassing all of our senses, asking yourself how we feel, I think is the most important thing. Checking in with yourself in the morning. I often leave my mornings completely free so I can really check in with myself, see how I'm feeling that day and what I might be up for. Because some days I feel like I could climb to the top of a mountain, and some days I feel like I can't walk to the shop. Sometimes there's in between, but very rarely. So I like to do that. I like to break it up into 3, and that's been really helpful. The next one, very helpful again, Google Maps. Google Maps is my best friend. I use Google Maps all the time. If I'm ever going somewhere I've never been before, if I'm checking how long it's going to take for me to get to my friend's house, I love to, if I'm doing something that's really quite scary for me, like going for dinner somewhere I've not been before. That is like all time. I do not like doing that. I will always go on Google Maps. I will read reviews of the restaurant, I will look at pictures, and I often will follow the little icon on Google Maps around from my house to the restaurant. I will see what road I'm going to drive on, I will see what I'll be passing, I'll maybe try and think of some checkpoints. So when I get to that stop, that's a checkpoint. When I see the shop, that's a checkpoint. When I see this, that's another checkpoint. I will analyse the way to get into the restaurant, I will analyse the table settings, and this just helps create me knowing it a bit better. I don't know exactly what it is that makes me feel better about it, but just knowing it a bit better, seeing where the exits are, seeing how quickly it would take me to get home. These are all things that I find so helpful, and it might seem obsessive, but that's me. I'm obsessive about things, and if you've never tried that and you're somebody that has panic attacks, especially about new places, That is one that has helped me so much. Another one that's quite similar is always having a bag full of things that are helpful. I have been known to have a bag with a heating pad in it, with moisturizer in case I want to massage my tummy when I'm out and about, with sometimes I take my shoes off and I walk barefoot on the ground. There's so many different things that I do that might look a bit weird, but that I need to do to ground myself and to feel better. I always, in my bag, always at all times have anti-nausea tablets and emergency medication, which is like doctor prescribed Valium, for if a panic attack's ever getting really out of control and I need something to help me. But I often will have really bizarre things in my bag. I also think I have a can of chickpeas I've had in my bag for about a month. Reason being, because I kind of forgot about it until right now, but also because that's another thing I find really useful. If I have a can, like this Fanta can, I will rub it on my tummy, I'll use it to cool myself down. I once bought a lemon from Asda because I like to scratch it and smell it for when I was really anxious in the car. God, the world's your oyster when it comes to anxiety tools, and I'd like to choose bizarre ones that might look weird to outside people, but I luckily don't really care about that, and the most important thing to me is feeling safe. And if a can of chickpeas makes me feel safe, that's what I'll do. The next one's kind of tricky, but it's something that I have not yet mastered, but it's something that I've always done to some extent, and that is creating boundaries with people. I think I'm quite lucky in some ways that I have been on YouTube talking about anxiety and Instagram talking about anxiety for so many years that most of the people in my life know the score. They know I'm not going to be going uptown partying with them. They know I'm not going to be drinking a lot. You know, I'm not ever going to be asked probably to do things that are super far from my comfort zone. So there's not very often that I have to say no to things, but there is things I have to say no to, and it's all about creating those boundaries. I think sometimes people find it hard to understand anxiety, and I think we need to let them find that hard. I think we need to, you know, I often say to people that are around me, it's okay that you find it hard to understand this. I'm not expecting you to completely understand this. But what I am expecting you to do is to respect that this is the way I feel, that it isn't my fault, and that I need to create boundaries. I think creating real boundaries for yourself is probably one of the hardest things you can do, especially if you have social anxiety. To say no to things can be really, really hard. But like I was saying about knowing yourself and being there for yourself and self-soothing, this is all a part of it. I do believe that the kinder we are to ourselves, the more nurturing we can be to ourselves, the more we ask ourselves and check in with ourselves, am I okay? How am I feeling? Is there anything that hurts? Do I need water? Creating boundaries. I think these are all part of the same thing. And I think it's all under the umbrella of self-care. Unfortunately, self-care isn't just baths and reading books and stuff. It is things like creating boundaries and saying no. When it comes to creating boundaries, I think there's a whole separate video, but I did want to briefly mention in here as something that is kind of a non-negotiable, for me anyway. Boundaries are so important for people with anxiety. We might find it extremely hard to create them, but boundaries are really so important. If you'd like to see a full video on boundaries, please let me know, because I would love to film one. And yeah, maybe you can just have a think about what boundaries you would like to create until the next video. My very last one is one that I would have completely rolled my eyes at you if you'd said anything like this to me a few years ago, because I used to find it so frustrating, and that's mindfulness. I think it's a trigger word. It's like a buzzword that people have used for the past like 5 years or so, and sometimes hearing somebody say, have you tried mindfulness, when you're in the midst of a panic attack, is the most frustrating thing you could possibly hear. However, mindfulness recently has come back into my life, and I think I'm at a point at the moment where it's being really helpful. And I don't meditate really. I don't find meditation all that helpful all the time. Something I've been really just finding so useful is just being present and being as present as possible. Today I had a moment in my kitchen where I was making a coffee and I was standing like I'm in the kitchen. I wasn't thinking about all the things I had to do. I wasn't thinking about all the worries I had. I was trying to just be like, I am here right now in the kitchen, making a coffee, noticing myself choosing a cup, putting the cup in the coffee machine, all the different noises it was making. I found it just like almost like meditation. It was like a really nice ritual that I was going through, and I was just very present. And when you're really present, you don't really have time to think about all the other things. And I'm reading also right now The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and I think it's starting to change some of the ways that I feel and some of the outlooks that I have. And I know hearing this might be one of those things like, oh, shut up, I've tried mindfulness, it's not helpful. And that's okay if that's the way you feel. You might come back to it like I have and find it helpful at some point. But it's just something that's helped me, and something that maybe can be a little bit of a part of your life, and you can bring some more mindfulness into some more moments in your life. I don't know. That's all I'm saying. Thank you so much for watching this video. There will be a new one very soon, and goodbye.